Nyra knew something was wrong the moment she saw her younger sister laughing with Zevian. It wasn't the laughter that bothered her. It was the way Zevian looked at her. That warm smile. The same smile he had not given Nyra in months. She stood quietly at the entrance of the garden, watching them from a distance. Neither of them had noticed her. Her sister, Lyra, gently touched Zevian's arm as they talked, and instead of stepping away, he smiled. Nyra felt her heart sink. She wanted to believe she was imagining things. She wanted to believe there was an explanation. After all, Zevian was her mate, the man who had once sworn before the moon goddess that no one would ever take her place. She took a slow breath and walked toward them. The sound of her footsteps made both of them turn. For a brief second, Zevian's smile disappeared. "Nyra," he said calmly, "you've been looking for me?" Nyra looked at him before turning to her sister. "I didn't know the two of you were meeting here." Lyra smiled innocently. "We were only talking." Nyra nodded. "I can see that." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Finally, Nyra forced a small smile. "I'll leave you both to finish your conversation." Without waiting for a reply, she turned and walked away. She refused to let them see the tears forming in her eyes. That evening, Zevian returned to their room much later than usual. Nyra was sitting near the window, staring at the moon. "You've been quiet," Zevian said. She looked at him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you happy with me?" The question caught him off guard. "What kind of question is that?" "A simple one." Zevian sighed. "You worry too much." Nyra lowered her eyes. "You didn't answer me." He remained silent for a moment. Then he finally spoke. "I've been under a lot of pressure lately." Nyra nodded slowly. "I know. But pressure doesn't make someone stop looking at the person they love." Zevian looked away. "I don't want to argue tonight." He walked past her and prepared to sleep. Nyra watched him in silence. That silence hurt more than an argument ever could. Over the next few weeks, the distance between them grew even larger. Zevian spent more time with Lyra, sometimes discussing pack matters, sometimes walking through the gardens, sometimes disappearing together for hours. Every time Nyra asked about it, Zevian gave the same answer. "You're overthinking." At first, Nyra believed him. Then she started noticing the whispers. Servants stopped talking whenever she entered a room. Warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Even the elders seemed uncomfortable. Everyone knew something. Everyone, except her. One afternoon, Nyra entered the royal library looking for an old treaty. As she reached the back corridor, she heard familiar voices. She stopped. "She doesn't have to know yet," Zevian said. Nyra's heart began racing. Then Lyra answered quietly, "I don't want to keep hurting my sister. I'll handle everything soon." Nyra felt the world spin beneath her feet. Her hands trembled. She stepped into the corridor. "Handle what?" Both of them froze. Lyra immediately stepped back. "Nyra, what are you talking about?" No one answered. Nyra looked at Zevian. "I asked you a question." He remained silent. She turned to her sister. "Tell me." Tears filled Lyra's eyes. "I'm sorry." Nyra felt a knot form in her chest. "Sorry for what?" Lyra looked down. "We didn't mean for this to happen." Nyra slowly turned back to Zevian. "Tell me she's lying." He closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he finally spoke, his words shattered her heart. "I have feelings for Lyra." The room became completely silent. Nyra stared at him, unable to think, unable to believe what she had just heard. "You," her voice broke. "You're choosing my own sister?" Zevian didn't deny it. "I never planned for this." Nyra laughed bitterly. "No one ever plans to betray the person who loves them." She looked at Lyra. "I welcomed you into my home." She looked back at Zevian. "And I trusted you with my heart." Neither of them could meet her eyes. That hurt even more. Nyra took a deep breath. She refused to cry. not in front of them. If the two of you truly want each other, she removed the silver bracelet Zevian had given her on the day they became mates. Then you don't have to hide anymore. She gently placed it on the table. I won't stand in your way. Without another word, Nyra turned and walked out of the library. Behind her, Zevian called her name. But for the first time, stop. She didn't look back. She simply kept walking, not knowing that the decision she made that day would change all three of their lives forever. Nyra walked through the palace gates with nothing but a small travel bag. She did not ask anyone to stop her. She did not wait for an apology. She did not even look back. The guards lowered their heads as she passed. Some wanted to speak, some wanted to comfort her, but no words seemed enough for a woman whose heart had just been broken by the two people she trusted most. Outside the gates, Nyra stopped for a moment. She looked up at the moon. A single tear rolled down her cheek. So this is how my story with him ends, she whispered. She wiped away the tear herself. No, this is where my new story begins. With that, she walked into the darkness. The palace felt strangely empty after Nyra left. At first, Zevian convinced himself he had made the right choice. He believed his feelings for Lyra were genuine. He believed time would heal everything. But as the days passed, he noticed things he had ignored for years. No fresh flowers decorated the dining hall anymore. No one checked on the elderly members of the pack. The orphaned wolves Nyra had quietly supported were asking where she had gone. The palace servants no longer smiled the way they used to. Nyra had never demanded attention. She had simply made everyone's lives better. And now that she was gone, everyone felt her absence. Even Zevian. One evening, he walked into the royal garden. It was the same place where he had first met Nyra. He remembered how nervous she had been. She had accidentally dropped a basket of herbs, and instead of laughing, he had helped her gather them. She had smiled at him then. A genuine, warm smile. It was the first time anyone had looked at him without fear. The memory made his chest tighten. "What am I doing?" he murmured. He shook the thought away. His decision had already been made. There was no changing the past. Meanwhile, Lyra was beginning to realize that reality was different from fantasy. She had imagined that being with Zevian would make her happy. Instead, she felt guilty every single day. Every corner of the palace reminded her of Nyra. Every servant looked at her differently. Not with respect, with disappointment. One afternoon, she entered the room that had once belonged to Nyra. Everything was exactly as Nyra had left it. A half-finished book rested on the table. A shawl hung neatly beside the window. Fresh lavender, now dried, still filled the room with its gentle scent. Lyra sat on the bed and burst into tears. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt her." For the first time, she understood the weight of her choices. Months passed. Far from the palace, Nyra had built a peaceful life in a quiet mountain village. She no longer introduced herself as Aluna. She simply called herself Nyra. She spent her days helping heal the sick, teaching young wolves how to read, and assisting neighboring villages whenever they needed her. She had found peace. Not because she forgot Zevian, but because she finally stopped allowing the past to define her future. The villagers admired her kindness. They trusted her judgment. They respected her without knowing anything about her past. One afternoon, an elderly Nyra woman approached her. "You always help everyone else," the woman said. "But who healed your heart?" He cried. Not because he had lost his Luna, but because he finally understood how deeply he had broken the heart of the woman who loved him more than anyone else. And somewhere far away, completely unaware that Zevian had finally begun to face the truth, Nyra's peaceful new life was about to change. A stranger had just arrived in her village, and the message he carried would force her to make a choice she never expected. The stranger arrived just before sunset. Nyra was outside the village healing garden, organizing herbs, when she noticed a man approaching. He wore the clothes of a royal messenger. For a moment, her heart became uneasy. She already knew where he had come from. The man stopped in front of her and bowed. "Luna Nyra." Nyra's expression changed slightly. "I am no longer anyone's Luna." The messenger lowered his head respectfully. "Forgive me, but that is not something the world has forgotten." Nyra remained silent. The messenger handed her a sealed letter from Alpha King Zevian. For several seconds, Nyra stared at the letter. A part of her wanted to throw it away. A part of her wanted to know why he was contacting her, after all. This time. Finally, she accepted it. "Thank you." The messenger hesitated. "Please understand, he did not send me only because he needs help." Nyra looked at him. "Then why?" The messenger answered quietly. "Because he finally understands what he lost." Nyra said nothing. She waited until the messenger left before opening the letter. Inside were only a few lines. "Nyra, I know I have no right to ask for your attention. I know my actions destroyed the trust between us. But I need you to know that I was wrong. I thought I was choosing happiness, but I was only choosing my own selfish desires. You were the person who stood beside me when nobody else did. You believed in me when I had given everyone else a reason not to. I only wanted you to know that I am sorry. Zevian." Nyra read the letter twice, then she folded it carefully. She had waited months to hear those words. But now that they finally came, they did not heal everything, because an apology could acknowledge a wound, but it could not erase the scar. Oh, wait. The next morning, Nyra received another surprise. This time it was not from Zevian. It was from Lyra. Nyra was shocked when she saw her sister standing outside her home. For a moment, neither woman spoke. The last time they stood together, everything had fallen apart. Finally, Lyra whispered, "I know you probably don't want to see me." Nyra looked away. "I don't know what I want." Lyra nodded. "I understand." A painful silence followed. Then Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "I was selfish." Nyra looked at her. "I told myself I was not trying to take anything from you." Her voice broke. "Did?" Nyra remained quiet. "I spent my entire life comparing myself to you," Lyra continued. "Everyone admired you. Everyone trusted you. I thought if I had what you had, I would finally feel important." She lowered her head. "But I didn't understand that being chosen by someone who betrayed you is not a victory." Nyra felt a mixture of emotions: anger, pain, sadness, but also something else: understanding. Because she could see that Lyra was not the same person either. "Why did you come here?" Nyra asked. Lyra wiped her tears. "Because you deserve to hear the truth from me." She took a breath. "I was wrong." Nyra looked at her sister. "And Zevian?" Lyra closed her eyes. "I ended things." Nyra was surprised. "Why?" "Because every time he looked at me, I knew he was searching for you." Those words stayed with Nyra. Back at the palace, Zevian was facing another difficult truth. Laura had left, not because she hated him, but because she realized their relationship was built on someone else's pain. "You loved an idea of me," Lyra told him before leaving. "But you never stopped loving Nyra." Zevian had no argument, because it was true. He had mistaken comfort for love. He had mistaken temptation for destiny, and he had destroyed the one relationship that had been real. Several days later, Nyra returned to the palace, not as someone begging for her old position, not as someone hoping Zevian would choose her again. She returned Because the pack was facing a serious threat. A powerful enemy group had begun attacking nearby territories, and everyone knew there was only one person who could unite the divided packs: Nyra. When she entered the palace gates, everyone stopped. The servants bowed, the warriors lowered their heads, the elders smiled with relief. But one person stood completely still: Zevian. For the first time in months he saw her again. But this time, she was different. She carried herself with confidence. She no longer looked like the woman who had walked away broken. She looked like a woman who had discovered her own power. Nyra. She looked at him calmly. Alpha King. The formal way she addressed him hurt. Because once, she had called him by his name with love. Now she spoke to him with respect only. And he realized something. Winning her back would not be about asking her to forget. It would be about proving he had truly changed. The return of Nyra changed the atmosphere of the entire palace. Everyone could feel it. The woman who had once left with a broken heart had returned with a strength that no one could ignore. But the person who felt it the most was Zevian. Every time he saw her, he remembered the night he destroyed her trust. He remembered the look in her eyes when she realized he had chosen someone else. A look he would never forget. For years, Zevian had believed being an Alpha King meant making difficult decisions without regret. But now he understood something. A leader could survive losing a battle. A leader could survive losing power. But losing the person who truly believed in him, that was a loss no victory could replace. During the council meeting, the elders gathered to discuss the growing threat from the eastern border. Several smaller packs had been attacked. Their resources were stolen. Their people were forced to flee. The enemy was growing stronger every day. One warrior stood and spoke. "We need a clear strategy. If we attack without preparation, we risk losing everything." Everyone looked toward Zevian. But before he could respond, Nyra stepped forward. "The enemy wants us to rush." The room became quiet. Nyra walked toward the map. "They know we will react with anger. They want us to fight without thinking." She pointed toward the border. "They have been moving their forces slowly, testing our weaknesses." An elder nodded. "She is right." Zevian watched her carefully. Months ago, he had ignored her advice. Now everyone was waiting for her opinion. And he realized how foolish he had been. Nyra continued, "We don't win this by showing who is stronger. We win by showing that we are united." The room remained silent. Then Zevian spoke. "I agree." Everyone looked surprised, not because he agreed, but because of how quickly he accepted her words. Before, Zevian would have allowed pride to control him. Now, he listened, because he finally understood that listening was not weakness. Later that evening, Zevian found Nyra near the training grounds. She was watching the warriors practice. "You are always good at this," he said. Nyra turned. "At what?" "Seeing things others missed." She gave a small smile. "I tried to tell you many times." The words carried no anger, and somehow that made them hurt more. Because she was no longer trying to make him feel guilty. She had already moved past that pain. Zevian looked down. "I know." A long silence followed. Then he said, "I read your journal." Nyra froze slightly. "My journal? The one you left behind?" Her expression changed. For a moment, Zevian saw the pain return to her eyes. "I shouldn't have read it," he admitted. "But I did." He swallowed. "And I wish I had seen those words when you were still beside me." Nyra looked away. "You wouldn't have understood." "You're right." The honesty surprised her. "Because I was too focused on what I wanted. I never stopped to think about what I was taking from you." Nyra remained silent. "I made you feel like you weren't enough." His voice became quieter. "And the truth is," he looked at her, You were the only person who was always enough." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The old feelings were still there. They had never truly disappeared, but the damage was also real. Finally, Nyra said, "Zevian, I loved you more than I loved myself." His expression changed, and that was my mistake. She continued, "I lost myself, trying to keep someone who had already chosen to let me go." Those words broke something inside him, because he realized Nyra was not refusing him because she stopped caring. She was protecting the person she had become. "I don't want the old Nyra back," Zevian said. She looked at him. "I don't want the woman who forgave everything and accepted everything." He stepped closer. "I want the woman standing in front of me now. The woman who knows her worth. The woman who is strong. The woman who chooses herself." Nyra looked at him carefully. "And what if she doesn't choose you?" Zevian took a breath. "Then I will accept that, because loving you means respecting your choice." For the first time, Nyra saw no arrogance in him, no pride, only regret and sincerity. But before she could answer, a loud warning horn echoed across the palace. The enemy had arrived. Begun. The warriors rushed into position. Zevian immediately prepared to lead the battle. But before leaving, he turned toward Nyra. "Stay safe." Nyra looked at him. "I don't need you to protect me." A small smile appeared on his face. "I know." Then he added, "But I still want to." And for the first time in a long time, Nyra almost smiled. The battle that followed would become one of the greatest challenges they had ever faced. But it would also reveal the truth everyone had forgotten. Nyra was never the woman who needed Zevian to give her strength. She was the woman who helped him find his own. And when the enemy finally discovered who they were fighting against, it was already too late. The battlefield was covered with silence before the first attack. The enemy stood across from them, confident that they had already won. They believed the Silver Moon Pack was divided. They believed the Alpha King was weakened. And most importantly, they believed Nyra was no longer a threat. They were wrong. As the enemy moved forward, Zevian looked toward Nyra. For the first time, he did not see the woman he had lost. He saw the woman who had returned stronger. The woman who had earned the respect of everyone around her. The woman who had never needed a crown to prove her worth. "Are you ready?" Zevian asked. Nyra looked toward the battlefield. "I was ready the moment I walked away." Those words stayed with him, because he finally understood. Her greatest victory was not defeating an enemy. It was finding herself again. The battle began. The enemy attacked with force, expecting the Silver Moon warriors to panic. But Nyra had already predicted their strategy. "Move the eastern group forward," she commanded. The warriors followed immediately. "Protect the injured, and do not break formation." Her voice was calm, clear, confident. Even the most experienced warriors followed her instructions without hesitation. Zevian fought at the front line, but his attention kept returning to Nyra, not because he doubted her, but because he admired her. This was the woman he had once called a weakness, the same woman who was now the reason they were winning. After hours of fighting, the enemy leader finally appeared. A powerful warrior named Darius stepped onto the battlefield. He looked at Nyra. "So this is the famous Luna who was replaced." The warriors became tense, but Nyra remained calm. Darius smiled. "I heard your own mate chose another woman over you." He looked around. "How does it feel knowing you were not enough?" The battlefield became quiet. Everyone waited for Nyra's reaction, but she simply smiled. "I used to believe that question would hurt me forever." She stepped forward. "But then I learned something." Darius narrowed his eyes. Nyra continued, "My worth was never decided by whether someone chose me." A powerful silence followed. "My worth existed before anyone recognized it." Those words shook everyone who heard them, because they were not just words. They were the truth she had discovered. Darius attacked, but Nyra was prepared. With the help of Zevian and their warriors, they defeated him. the enemy forces and forced Darius to surrender. The battle was over. The Silver Moon Pack had won. But the greatest victory was not on the battlefield. It was the change that had happened between Zevian and Nyra. That evening the entire pack gathered. Everyone expected Zevian to announce Nyra's return as Luna immediately. But instead, he stepped forward alone. "I owe everyone an apology." The crowd became silent, especially Nyra. Zevian continued, "I was given a mate who believed in me, supported me, and stood beside me. And I was foolish enough to believe I could replace her." His voice carried through the hall. "I hurt the person who deserved my protection the most." He turned toward Nyra. "I cannot erase what I did. I cannot ask you to forget. But I can spend the rest of my life proving that I have changed." The hall remained silent. Then Zevian slowly lowered himself, the Alpha King, the most powerful man in the pack, kneeling before everyone, before Nyra. "I don't ask you to return because you are my mate. I ask because I love you." Nyra looked at him. The man who once stood above her now stood before her with humility. And she realized something. Zevian had finally become the man she always believed he could be. But she did not answer immediately. She stepped closer. "Zevian," he looked up. "I forgive you." A wave of emotion moved through the crowd. But forgiveness does not mean we forget. "I know. It means we choose to heal." A small smile appeared on her face. "And if we start again," she paused, "it will be different." Zevian stood. "How?" Nyra looked into his eyes. "We stand together. Not because I need you, not because you need me, but because we choose each other." For the first time in a long time, Zevian smiled. A real smile. The same one Nyra had fallen in love with years ago. Months later, the pack was stronger than ever. But the greatest change was not the strength of their warriors. It was the relationship between their leaders. Zevian no longer ruled through pride. He listened. He learned. He respected the woman beside him. And Nyra was no longer the woman who waited for someone to recognize her value. She knew it already. The story of the Luna who was replaced became a lesson passed through generations. A lesson about betrayal. A lesson about forgiveness. A lesson about knowing your worth. Because sometimes people only understand the value of something after they lose it. And sometimes the person they thought was easy to replace becomes the one they spend forever trying to earn back. If you enjoyed Nyra and Zevian's journey, kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and join us for more powerful romance stories filled with love, betrayal, forgiveness, and unforgettable moments. Don't forget to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories every day.